Ayurveda, Sama, and Tharava. Ancient law, science, God's numbers. All this is mere name. Meditate on the name, i.e. meditate on the information, the knowledge, bring all that together and coalesce it, integrate it, internalize it and integrate it and contemplate it and meditate on it. That's what they're suggesting. All of this knowledge together will help one understand a greater meaning of matter, and to understand matter will also in parallel helps one understand the self. He who understands on the name as Brahman becomes independent so far. He meditates on name as Brahman. There is something greater than the name, so greater than material matter knowledge, those things he's learned in the material space. Okay, speech. Speech is greater than name. It makes know the Rig Veda, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, science, etc. Makes one know. Meditate upon speech. He who meditates on speech as Brahma becomes independent so far as speech reaches. He who meditates on speech as Brahman, there is something greater than speech. It's also cascading, the speech of others, speech to yourself, speech internally, and speech outwardly to teaching, and so on and so forth. The speech, the messages through energy that is sent to you from the divine realm is also regarded as speech to self, from that which is within. Okay, mind. So it goes into the 5 areas here. I believe it's 5 areas, but it goes on and on into different aspects of the material and the physical. So it goes into the cosmic, the nature, and the body aspects, and relates them back to the divine spirit. So it goes into mind. So we talked about speech, now it's on to mind. Okay, mind is greater than speech. In mind, to learn the sacred hymns, the hymns and the chants and the Om, learn them. Mind to perform sacred works. In mind to desire this world. Mind is indeed the self, the world. Mind is Brahman. So Manas is mind, is the internal organ endowed with reflection. This is how we reflect and contemplate using mind. And we meditate also is a relaxation, but also it involves mind. He who meditates on mind as Brahma becomes independent. There is something greater than mind. So it's going through saying what's greater than speech, what's greater than mind, what's greater than will and thought, and so forth. And this is what this section is mostly, this chapter of this section is mostly about. So it goes on to will. Remember, will is thought and intention as well. When we will something, we have a thought and we have an intention for something. This is called will, but also free will. Free will is underpinned by thought and intention. When one wills, then one reflects. One utters speech, one utters. Thinking is the internal inner activity, which is what the thought and intention aspects are. Center is in the will. Have the will as their soul. Abide in will. Heaven and earth are formed through will. Air and ether were formed through will. Sacred humans become willed, i.e. free will. World becomes willed. Everything becomes willed. He who meditates on will as Brahman, the world he has willed. Permanent worlds, unwavering worlds. Meditates on will as Brahman. Is there anything else greater than will? So this is basically really talking about what we've discussed before, that everything is manifest from from a thought which is driven, it drives intention, or is vice versa, manifesting energy into form or experience or an objectified thing within the material space. This is where we are as aspects of the divine in our infinite spirit, an intention and a thought driven out from the divine. We are sprung out, born from the divine through a thought and intention of it. So thought, here we go, will, intention, thought. Thought is more than will. One thinks, then he wills. Absolutely. So I'm saying thought comes before intention. It drives the intention. Reflects, utters speech, sacred hymns. Thought is higher than will. All these center in thought, their goal and abide in thought. Indeed, thought is the center of all these. Thought is their soul. Meditate on thought as Brahman. Obtains the world he has thought. As far as thought goes, so far is he independent. Is there anything greater than thought? So thought, for me, is actually one of the foundation, the pillars of the universal law. And I think after this I'll bring up a image which I think I have ready. If not, I'll try to find it. Let me just check if I have it ready. I believe I do have it. Yes, I do actually. So I might actually bring it up onto the screen after this, just as a sidebar. Okay, contemplation. Contemplation is greater than thought. Atmosphere contemplates, as it were. So this is talking about ether. This is talking about the realm of manifestation, the realm of infinite possibility and probability, the ether. Is greater than thought. Atmosphere contemplates, as it were. Heaven contemplates. The waters contemplate. Mountains contemplate. Gods and men contemplate. This is reflection, of course, reflection of knowledge. Small people are quarrelsome, slandering. Meditates on contemplation as Brahman. Is there anything greater than Brahman? So contemplation of all our thoughts on one subject acquire repose, become firm and established in the earth. So this is it. With thought and intention, we contemplate on it, give it force, and give it will. Understanding greater than contemplation. By understanding, one understands. This is talking about the fathers, which is the Veda knowledge. But to understand through contemplation, through thought, through will, and so forth, is the will to understand and to receive that desire to know the unknown. Understanding greater than contemplation. By understanding, one understands the Vedas. All this one understands just with understanding. Meditate on understanding. Meditate on understanding as Brahman, absolute consciousness always, as all this brings into that. He attains the world of understanding of knowledge. Is there anything greater than understanding? Strength is greater than understanding. One strong man causes 100 men of understanding. If he rises, he serves wise people. He draws near as a pupil, becomes a seer, hearer, thinker, perceiver, doer, and understander. By strength the world stands. Meditate on strength, meditates on strength as Brahman. Is there something greater than Brahman? No, there isn't. So the absolute, of course, but this is going into what Brahman is. But this is the strength. Once we understand our absolute, when we reach a state of Brahmanic consciousness, this is absolute strength. We have strength that derives from that understanding, that integration, but it comes from all of the preceding aspects of understanding, contemplation, thought, will, mind, and speech, and many other aspects as well that this goes into. So he talks about food here. Food is greater than strength. Anyone does not eat for 10 days, he might live, yet becomes a non-seer, a non-hearer, non-knower. When he gets food, he becomes a seer, hearer, thinker, a knower. Meditate on food. Who meditates on food as Brahman has unlimited freedom. Food in this way is knowledge, the Vedas, the fathers. That's what he's talking about. Water is greater. There is not good rain. Living creatures sicken. Also material food and water, but also the food is the Vedas, the fathers, the knowledge. Food will become scarce. With good rain, creatures rejoice. Water indeed is all these forms. Meditate on water. Water as Brahman becomes satisfied. Is there anything greater than water? Heat is greater than water. It seizes hold of the wind and the warm and the ether, and warms the ether. Heat first indicates this and creates water through condensation and so forth. Meditate on heat as Brahman. Radiant himself, attains radiant, shining worlds, freed from darkness. As far as heat reaches as Brahman, has unlimited freedom. Is there something greater than heat? So these are the questions that the student is asking. Ether or space is greater than fire. Ether exists both sun and moon. Ether one calls, through ether one hears, one answers. Ether one does not enjoy himself. In space one is born, and unto space one is born. So this means when born, the seed grows upward and not downward. So it's actually saying we're born into this state of ignorance. We are to grow upward into the state of enlightenment, if you like. He attains the worlds of ether and of light. And unconfined and wider extending, Brahma has unlimited freedom. So this is talking about the passage, the ingestion of the material, of food, water, and so forth, but also their representations of knowledge of the Vedas, of the fathers, contemplation of all knowledge, all knowing, into absorption into the greater infinite space, which is also called ether or the space, fire being the action. Memory. Memory is more than ether. Many assemble, and if they have no memory, would not hear any one at all, not understand. They remember. Memory is a quality of the inner organ. Memory is Brahman and has unlimited freedom. Hope is greater than memory. When kindled by hope, memory learns, performs sacrifices, desires, has sons, they have cattle. Remember, these are aspects of having many sons, having lots of cattle was a measure of wealth, if you like. Hope as Brahman, desires are fulfilled, prayers do not go in vain. Hope is also faith, practice of faith. Life, greater than hope. As the spokes are fastened in the hub, life, breath, all this is fastened. Life moves by the life breath, which is also the spirit, but also the internal, inner, external and diffused breath. It gives life to a living creature. Is one's father, mother and brother. Thinks this, understands this, becomes an excellent speaker. So the comment here, he goes beyond all declarations, make previously beginning with name and ending with hope, and realizes that prana, the life force, or the consciousness self, is Brahma, which it is. Truth and understanding. When one understands, then he speaks the truth. One must desire to understand. Understanding. Absolutely. Faith. When one has faith, then he thinks. One who has not faith does not think. Only he who has faith thinks. He has steadfastness. One has faith. Desire to understand. Steadfastness. Hope is also linked to faith. We don't have hope unless we have faith. They're all intertwined. All of these things are intertwined. Okay, the infinite. Infinite is happiness. There is no happiness in anything small, finite. It is the highest that can be reached. The infinite is in the small. There is no happiness. It produces craving, which is the seed of sorrow. So he's saying, if we focus on the material, the myopic, this is the finite. This is the desire driven. If we focus on the infinite, which is the non-myopic, the vastness, this is where happiness is derived, because it doesn't produce craving or in this case sorrow, which is, in other words, we don't acquire sleep, which is the awakening of light. The empirical dualities are absent in the experience of the infinite. Absolutely, there is no duality in the infinite. Duality is what we've created in the finite, or the matter, the universal space. The infinite cannot be established in anything different from itself. Absolutely. Until we go into our divine self, we cannot establish the infinite within ourselves until we go into that infinite space that's within ourselves. Self, sense, and the self. Self, sense, and the self. That infinite indeed is below, is above. It is behind, in front, south, north, all this world. Self, sense. Indeed, I am below, I am above, I am behind. Instruction in regard to the self indeed is below. He who sees this, who thinks this, he has pleasure in the self, has delight, has union in the self, joy in the self, is independent, is a self-ruler. Very true, that statement. They who think differently from this are dependent on others. I like the self-ruler part. This is effectively saying our sense of self is within the infinite I, which is the true self. That is where we become independent self-ruler. Now, it's interesting to state how many of us feel that we are sovereign in our thoughts, our intentions, our will, our interaction with this world. How many of us think that we are? Or are we just merely, really just interacting with stimuli that this material world and all that surrounds it, that controls it, that governs it, that enforces itself on it, want us to drive to certain directions, certain beliefs, or who to hate, who to love, what to know, what to not know, what's true, what's not true, and so on and so forth. We're giving these stimuli and directed by much hidden forces in this world. Are we truly independent? Well, I can tell you that the state of true independence, as far as I say, you can achieve in body, is in the divine spirit itself. The further you integrate into the divine spirit, the more independent your sight in this world becomes. And then your own actions, words, thoughts, and intentions and decisions will be directed by that independence of, you'll become the ruler of the self. There are very few in this world who are true rulers of the self. They believe they are, but they are not. They believe that intellectually, but not within their divine selves. There's a big difference. The primary of self, him who sees this, who thinks this, who understands, life breath springs from the self, memory is from the self, ether is from the self. Also in comments is all these life breath, hope, memory which were traced to the real are now traced to the self, as the real and the self are one. He is one. Nourishment is pure, nature is pure. Memory becomes firm, released from all knots of the heart. This is desires from the heart, desire-driven, material-driven aspects of the heart. As his stains are wiped away. Sir Sanat Kumara points out that spiritual freedom is the basis of all action. We reach it by stages. The vision of the divine, the infinite gives happiness. Other things which fall short of it are of little consequence. This is what we were discussing before about the true nature of true self-ruling. The primacy of the self is another aspect of that. So we've come to the other end of that passage as well. That's that subsection in the chapter. And again, I actually quite like that. It's very clear messaging in there that we managed to pull out. Again, become yourself. Understand what you do and why you do it. Become the second coming, because that second coming is really just the elevation of the Krishna consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the Vedic knowledge, the knowledge of all things that resides within, actually. These scriptures and everything we read, gurus, rabbis, priests, popes, pedestals, whatever we want to call them, or they stand on, are just avenues. The knowledge is all there. They were written from someone from here. You also have this knowledge within yourself. Okay, I'll say again, thank you for listening to this. I just want to open up the webcam, not the webcam yet, but I want to show you the universal laws. Oh, here we go. It touches quite nicely here. So I produced this some time ago, and there is a video in my back catalogue if you want to take a look at that. It's called Universal Laws, funnily enough. And this is you understand all of this, and it gives a very good foundation as to the nature of what governs us in life, what governs in afterlife. So we have universal law. These are the petals on the lotus flower. Underneath, within the material plane, we have human laws, and we have natural law. That's of nature, of the cosmic plane, the cosmos around us, of the natural law effects around us, what goes around comes around, those kind of things. We have human law, which is imposed upon us. This can be broken. Human natural laws can be circumvented in some way sometimes. Human laws can all be broken. Universal law, however, the petals of the lotus flower, cannot. Natural law is conscience. We can disregard our conscience, our sense of right and wrong, for example. It's a natural law. It's something within us. Our desire not to hurt another is a natural aspect in most people, unless you're psychopathic or sociopathic in nature. These can all be circumvented. Human laws can all be circumvented and broken. They're just human. Universal laws cannot, because they govern everything that happens in the material space and that which happens in the non-material space. And it governs our incarnational cycle also, our timelines, our free will, our tendencies and patterns. So as I said, thought is that which, as a pinnacle, thought underpins everything. Energy is the foundation of exists, but it's transmuted through thought. Thought is what we think about. Thought is what the divine thought us into being, our spiritual essence, our spirit. Through the intention through thought, it manifests through energy, us as infinite spirit, but also matter and form that shall be. These work within the universe to create things. And natural forces manifest forces through time and interaction, through the forces of destruction, creation and preservation, which are also deities. But we do things in life through the same forces, underpinned through thought and intention, transmuting energy into matter through the destruction, preservation and creation process. But through our experiences, we have free will, is a derivative of thought and intention. We are free to think and intend whatever we wish. But through that, we create actions, words, thoughts, and expressions and decisions. We create tendencies, past paradigms of behavior, of thought, of expression, of things that we do. These are held in our Akasha. What we do is our clothes that we wear when we come back through the Akasha, and we leave them as we drop back through the Akasha back home. Our spirit leaves these clothes as we go home and enters and puts them back on as it comes back in to this space. Through our free will, thought, and intention, we create, through these tendencies, karmic karma, good or bad or indifferent. We create timelines of experience through incarnative cycles of life, and also time of experience in one life, depending on our thought and intention, what we decide to do, what we decide to think, transmuting energy into actions, word, thought, and intentions of tendency, creating more karma, good, bad, or indifferent, creating different timelines. All of this universal law has to become in balance whilst we're in form, and this is what's called attaining sleep in the Vedas. And once this is in balance, we achieve what is called moksha and the release from the cycle of rebirth into the physical plane, because we have understood what all this means, and we have brought balance into our Akashic plane, where the clothing that our spirit is worn, has been wearing, has been clothed with as it enters this material state of loss, is cleansed sufficiently enough where human expression is no longer needed. Doesn't mean that we may not have expression in other forms, but the human paradigm, this world that we so will, those, well, I do, I don't know about you guys who are on this journey, also will to release oneself from. So this is look at the universal laws video. It's back in my catalogue very early, back in probably late 2019, maybe mid to late 2019, somewhere around that. You'll see this video there, and it goes into a little bit more depth into this. But this is this lotus leaf here, this picture. If you understand this and truly integrate it, you'll understand the nature of what governs our lives, and also the creative forces of transformation, destruction, and creation as well. So, okay, I just want to say thanks again for listening to this video, and I appreciate it. We're coming to the final chapter on the next video, and I hope you enjoyed it and are getting something out. Please leave your feedback, and say thank you for subscribing. Pass this on to others who may find this channel useful now and in the future as we proceed into other scripture and other things that we're going to share with each other. And I'll say thank you again, and God bless you all.